Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I hope everybody got logged back onto this link and maybe we can get this one going a little bit better. But as we wait on everyone to jump on, leave your name in the chat box so we know who we have with us. That helps us out a little bit. And we'd love to see who all's here.
Yeah, we apologize. We had a little technical glitch there with our camera again. The camera was being held captive by another program. So like I said, we're going to wait a few minutes here, kind of have a little dead time, maybe a little bit, but try to get everybody logged back in and see who we can get going, and we'll start up and try from square one again.
While we wait, I can talk a little bit about our website and our social medias and stuff. Our website and everything is linked in the description of this video, so it should be down below. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and then that's where we'll do a bunch of our updates to let you guys know what our next videos are going to be. And we'd love to have some feedback from you guys too. So if you have any questions or anything that you'd like us to go on a video, we would love to hear it. So you can reach out to, there's an info email on our website. You could email that, or you could just drop it in the comments. And if you have any questions at any time throughout the video, just drop them in the chat bar on the right.
Yeah, and as Carly said, there's links to the website and links to the D400 section. A lot of the documents and stuff I'll kind of refer to. If you just go to our website, go to products, go to D400, and then click on which particular D400 you're wanting info on. Once you click on it, kind of towards the middle of the page, you'll see a bunch of different documents that'll help you with calibration, troubleshooting, manuals, everything you might need to know. So that I'll refer to a couple of those documents that you're going to hear me talk about, a menu structure, a quick a push button instructions, and a few other things, but that's where to find those.
Okay, we've got a couple people jumping on. In the past videos, we've talked a lot about our analog products, and now we're moving into our digital stuff. So this week, Scott is going to introduce the D400 positioner. So if you have any questions at any time, drop them in the chat bar, and thank you for hanging in and waiting on us to get started.
Yeah, guys, thanks everybody for searching this back out and finding this with our little issues. We'll give a couple more seconds here and see what we can do. Again, today we're going to kind of do a little introduction on D400. We're going to do a quick mounting, go through some of the menu features, some of the options and capabilities of the D400. Like I said, what we're working with today, both with our display stand and with the actuator here we have, they're both double acting units. So we're going to start with double acting. And we'll go over some of the things that you need to know about mounting and calibrating them, but we're going to give just a few more seconds here. We're going to kind of get into it. All right, I think we got a few people in now. If you get in late and we've gone over a few things, you can always go back and watch the video again. If you got questions, go ahead and ask the questions. But we're going to try to get started now, and so we don't hold you guys up anymore, and try to get as much information to you as we can. Like I said, what we're going to start off with is we've got a rack and pinion actuator, double acting. So we're going to tube to both sides, and what we're starting with is our VAC D400 positioner. The D400 is a digital product with a maximum supply pressure of 90 PSI. We really suggest that when you're running a digital specifically, we want you to run filter regulators anytime you can run one. We want you to run it on V200s, V100s, whatever, but specifically on the D400s because it's so pressure specific that it can only hold 90 PSI, where our D500s, V100s, V200s can go up to 145 PSI. When you open the box, you end up with a D400. It's been vacuumed. It's the ABV product, which we use. It'll give, on one side will give you our model code, phone number, and a part number for us. You'll notice another thing that we do on the bottom of the unit, we put an A to B sticker. When you go to mount a D400, they are quadrant specific, meaning that there is a quadrant that it will not work in. So the potentiometer inside is only good in certain areas. On this particular unit, we're doing as you can see, we have a D400 double acting D1 Hart 4-20. When it comes out of the box, you'll have a spindle in your box. So in case you pull the positioner out, make sure you don't throw the spindle away. The spindle will mount to the bottom of the positioner. You'll notice that on the stem, on the output or the input shaft, it's round with a flat. We would like to see one of our 2 set screws on that flat, if at all possible. Oftentimes we do some setup things that somebody didn't pay some attention, or we need to fix some things. So it doesn't need to be on that flat, but we prefer that it is. Before mounting the positioner, what you're going to want to do is get your little pointer and make sure the white pointer is pointing towards A or B. Generally, you'll start with A, but sometimes, depending on the operation, you may start at B. And if this little plastic pointer breaks off, the flat of the shaft becomes the pointer, essentially. When you set the unit up, I'm going to remove the cover real quick, but we're going to hold the unit up. This unit is clockwise to close, and we're going to do 4 milliamps is closed, 4 milliamps full clockwise position. So that means as we increase signal, this is going to rotate counterclockwise. So we can imagine that this is rotating 90 degrees counterclockwise, and we can check now, and we can see that we went from A to B, so we know we're working in the right quadrant. So we're going to set it back to A. We're going to pay attention that the slot is up and down. So we're going to set our spindle on. Hold on to it. We're going to set our spindle on to where the spindle's up and down. And we're going to tighten the set screws. Taking the time to be sure that we're working from A to B is just going to shortcut an issue we see in a minute. We're going to go through the first part of setup. And what it is it'll guarantee that you've got the setup right, and it won't, it kind of shortcuts and saves you some time of troubleshooting later on. Being a double acting unit, we have 3 inputs. We have a supply, an output 1, and an output 2. We're going to put our supply pressure on. Output 1, generally we have our driving open port, and output 2 will go to our driving closed port. At this point, we'll hook up our wires, 11 and 12. This is a Hart unit, but being a Hart unit, it will power and work off of 4 to 20 milliamps. You do not need a Hart system to operate it. All right. We've got 4 milliamps on the unit, and now I said the unit is powering up. We're not going to go through a full calibration on this unit. I just kind of wanted to get it set up and show you calibration and show you how to start the calibration. I'll start the calibration, but I will go ahead and kind of disable the calibration. This unit we have over here we'll go to in a minute. It's fully calibrated. Calibration takes anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. So we didn't want to have to sit here and you hear that constantly making a bunch of racket and have a bunch of dead time. But
while we're talking about calibrating, and we do have a question in the chat, and the question is, can you calibrate a Profibus or a foundation field bus unit?
Yes, you can calibrate those. There is a couple of different little added steps, but you can power the unit up and calibrate it, and you can stroke it with the push buttons, but you can't stroke it with a signal because you have to have Profibus or field bus systems to stroke the valve when it is in remote mode and operating with remote signal. But you can mount, calibrate, and test it. Like I said, guys, if y'all got any more questions, if I go over something, you got a question, just pop it in the chat, make a comment. If you watch this later and you still have questions, just go ahead and put it in the comment section, or give us a call, email us, whatever you need to, but we'll see what we can do to get you the answers you need. back to this heart unit. Like I said, we've got it powered up. Now we have power on the display. One of the things we'll do initially is we're going to press the mode button. One thing you'll learn on the D400s is you'll have to push multiple buttons often at doing different options and different parameters. So currently what we're going to do is we're going to press the mode button and make sure, and we're in P1.3 manual sense. What that is doing is it's just reading the degrees of rotation off of the potentiometer inside the unit. Once you have the unit powered up and air on it, what you'll do is you'll press the buttons, the up or down arrows, to drive the unit. And what we want to see is we're starting at 47.9 degrees, and we're going to push the button, and we see we're traveling to negative 46.3. What that did was went from roughly 45 degrees positive to 0 to 45 degrees negative. What we want to work in is a positive to negative 57 degrees. We know as long as we're working in within those two parameters, that the unit will calibrate. We knew it worked correctly the first time because we made sure we were between A and B, operating in the A and B quadrant on the bottom side of the positioner. Oftentimes, this will actually start at 45 and climb much higher. Oftentimes, it'll climb much higher, and you know that you're working out a quadrant. What you'll have to do is kind of reconfigure how the positioner is mounted with a spindle. Yeah, Bob, as you asked, like before, to navigate through the menus is you press the mode button and an arrow button, and that will navigate from P1.0, 1.2, or 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3.
We have another question from Joe Masker, and he wants to know if there's any significance about 57 degrees. 57
degrees, it has to do with the sensing range of the potentiometer. The revision 5s will actually go higher than that. They have 270 degree range, where the old range was 135 degrees. But they put you in a certain range that way you know at 0 you're linear above and below 0. So there's not really anything significant other than that was a number that they had come up with that is based on the potentiometer they used. So it's a quarter turn actuator, so it's 90 degrees. That's why we see roughly negative 45 to positive 45. So we see 90 degrees of rotation. Again, we'll backtrack a little bit, but we've got this unit in manual sense. We've stroked the unit, and we know we're going from positive to negative numbers, and we know that it is operating in the right quadrant. So now if we were to do a calibration, this being a rotary unit, we'll press the enter button, hold it until it says ADJ ROT across the bottom of the screen. And what that is, adjust rotation. Once that comes up, you'll release the enter button, press it and hold it again, and you'll see a countdown. And I'll start that now to kind of show, and then we'll shortcut it so we don't have to hear it. But we'll press the button until you see ADJ ROT appear, and it does now. We'll release it, press it and hold it again through the countdown, and you'll hear the unit will start calibrating. So we're run 10. We're going to go ahead and silence it. Once the unit says run 10, goes to a run 20. Once it makes it to run 20, it will usually calibrate at that point the vast majority of the time, because what run 10 does is it vents the actuator, and what run 10 does is it puts all pressure into the actuator, so that's checking its end stops. Once it gets past its end stops, it's going to calibrate because it's happy. It's in range. Oftentimes, if you don't go through the steps of making sure you're working in that A to B quadrant, or you don't drive the push buttons to make sure you're between positive and negative 57, what will happen is it'll come up and it'll say out of range, and it will not calibrate. So then we have to either pull the unit off, or we'll have to loosen the set screws, and we have to reconfigure how it's mounted to make sure that we're working in that A to B quadrant. But for this unit, that's kind of, we wanted to show you quickly how to set it up, mount it up. And now we'll go to look at the other unit on the test stand, and we're going to kind of go through some of the setup of it. It's already a calibrated unit. It's ready to go. We'll just have to swap a few things over, and we'll look at a few of the other features, and you'll be able to see the unit operate a little better with that. Like I said originally, the units we're working are double acting units. When you order a D400, it will be ordered as double or single acting. Whereas our analog products, they're all double acting, and you just plug a port on this if you need a single acting unit. Very similar with the D400. If you have a D400 positioner, you can use it on a single acting actuator. You just have to plug one of the two ports. But if you have a double acting actuator, you have to use a double acting positioner. So it's things to be sure of. I'll remove the cover here. This unit, we're going to go ahead and we're going to show that we've already calibrated the unit. So the unit's been calibrated, but we're going to go ahead and drive it back to 0 position. So like we had seen before on the other unit, it's already been calibrated, but so we're positive 45 into negative 45. So we know it's calibrated. So what we're going to do is this unit, as we increase signal, we're going to adjust. This unit is still in manual sense. We're going to go into to auto or in control fix. What control fix is doing is now it's receiving a signal from our signal generator. So as we increase our signal, 12 milliamp, we're going to go to 50%, and we're going to go to 20 milliamp. At 20 milliamp, we'll be at 100%. Oftentimes, you'll need to reverse these units. When the unit needs to be reversed, it's pretty simple to go into the configuration level, and we can make these changes pretty simply. We're going to change it into reverse acting. One of the documents that's very helpful is the menu structure. I keep them with me anytime I work with one. I have one, just you're not going to be able to see it very well out of camera, but I'm keeping my menu structure. That way I can go through and without having to do it by memory or trial and error. What we're going to do is we're going to go into configuration level now. We're going to change it to reverse acting unit. To get into the configuration level, you'll have to press the up and down arrows and hold them down. While you're holding the up and down arrows, you'll press and release the enter button. You'll continue to hold the up and down arrows through the countdown. And what that's going to do is put you into the configuration level. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but now we're at P1.0. To change the operation, what we will have to do is we're going to go into P2.3. P2 level is our set point level. And if we go to P2.3, that goes to our action. Currently, it is direct acting. We're going to change it to reverse. We're in P1.0 now. To go from P1, P2, P3 level, you have to press both the mode and enter button. While pressing those, then press an arrow button. You can press up or down to get to the level you want to be at because the menus cycle through. But like I said, we press mode and enter. Now we're at P2. Now, to go up in the P2 level, up and down, we'll have to press the mode button and an arrow button to go up and down in that level. And we want to be, well, I said P. I actually want to be in, P2.3. So now we'll go to 2.3, action. When you release the buttons, it'll tell you what its current setting is. Currently, it's set as direct. We're going to press an arrow, and we're going to change it to reverse. Once you make a change in your configuration level, you have to go into exit. And basically what that is making it asks you, it's a confirmation that you want to make that change. So to go to exit, you'll press mode and an arrow until you see exit at the bottom of the screen. Once you do, you release everything. It says NV save. What that means is new value saved. Once you see that on screen, you're going to want to press the enter button and hold it through the countdown. Once you've done that, the unit will kick you back into the operating level you were in previously. So now we're in control fix. Now we're reverse acting, whereas before 4 milliamps was 0% open, now 4 milliamps is 20% open, and as we increase signal to 20 milliamps, we're going to drive close. So we've now changed the unit, but now we are showing, if you have a fail open unit, that's generally where this comes into play. Where you want one to change this option is basically where you have a fail open, fail closed. Sometimes control signals are a little odd and people can't change their 0 from 4 to 20 milliamp, or it's harder for them to do, or they have some specific reason, but that's options that we can do with the unit. This unit is a standard fail-safe unit. So the 4 and 20 milliamps, when this unit is at 4 milliamps, you're going to have all the output out of output 2 and 0 output out of output 1 on your airlines. When you lose signal, that's going to continue to be the case because it is a fail-safe unit. You can go inside and manipulate this where your 4 milliamps is open or closed. So it's 0 or 100%. But when you lose signal, when it loses power, all output's going to come out of output 2. So it's going to drive it to whatever position output 2 is. So this unit is configured and equipped with a feedback. I'll show you the feedback option. The feedback is a little different than on the V100, the V200 we've gone over so far in previous webinars. This particular unit, the 4 to 20 is calibrated when the unit is calibrated, so it's not a separate control.
We have a question in the chat bar, and that comes from Randy, and he wants you to describe the differences between fixed control and adaptive control.
Okay, in fixed control, when you go through the calibration, there is certain parameters in the actuator setting. It's in the control parameters like KP values, off TV values, and such that are fixed. Once you do the calibration, those are fixed. When you put the unit in control adapt, the unit is in an adaptive mode. It's a smart mode. It's learning. So it will, if you have a really rough control curve, running it in control adapt for some time, what that'll do is help smooth that curve out. It's a smart learning feature, essentially. But that's something you want to run it in there for a few hours and then shut it back, put it back into manual, into control fix. That way it will run.
If you install feedback in the field after the positioner is calibrated, how do you calibrate it?
The best way to do a calibration, when we calibrated the other unit and this unit, we did a single push button calibration. And what that is doing is that's going through an initial setup. There's quite a few things that will erase when you do that calibration. If you want to do a calibration and you make any little small changes and you want to keep those changes, you just want to recalibrate the unit. The way to do that is to go into the configuration level, just like we did earlier, and we're going to go to the P1 section. And we can go in and we can do a span adjust only, or we can do a full calibration, but calibrate from the P1.1 level, and we'll demonstrate that now, that we'll go in and we'll change it to a control or to a stroke only cal. And what that'll do is if you add a card in the field, it's best to calibrate the unit that way that card initializes to the controls inside the positioner. So what we can do is we will go in mode up and down, press up and down, press enter and release it, holding the up and down arrows through the countdown. We're going to go into P1.0. Now we're going to go into P1. P1.1, we're going to go P1.2 to adjust mode, and we're going to change it to stroke. What this is going to do is allow us to do a stroke cal. It'll be really quick calibration, but it will be, and we'll do it from P1 versus the single push button. So we've picked stroke cal now. So what we're going to do is press the mode and arrow up to P1.1. It'll be auto adjust. Release all the buttons. It'll say start. Once it gets there, we're going to press and hold the enter button through the countdown. So we got a run pin. We'll have a 20 run. Now we'll go to a midpoint. And we're complete. So now if you had added we'll go to add the card, but if you had added a card, that would be the best way to calibrate it. So now it is run. Anytime you run anything other than a full cal, you're going to go back into the control adaptive mode, because of doing a short cal is just finding endpoints. So it needs to fine tune itself. So anytime you do anything other than a full cal, you're going to want to run it in control adapt for some time so it can smooth itself out and tune itself. We're going to look back at the unit we had out here earlier. Something we talked about is the unit. This unit already had feedback. This unit does not. We're going to install feedback in it and show you guys how to install the feedback quickly. We're going to go ahead and we have the cover off the unit. We're going to pull this indicator off. It's just a friction fit. I have to remove any wiring because it will get in your way. Like I'm doing. All right. So there'll be 2 screws to remove. There's a screw in the upper left-hand corner and a screw in the lower right-hand corner. Once those are removed, there's a little hole here that you're going to put a small screwdriver in and pry out slightly. What that does is disengages the cover from the board. And there's another tab right here you'll have to pry out slightly. Now we've exposed electronics, and a feedback card is simple. It's a small little device card with a little ribbon connector. Inside the unit, there's 2 slots in this area. You'll put it in the outermost slot. Make sure your screws are facing out, and the ribbon connector connects to the only connector that it will fit on. Something we've kind of talked about slightly. This is a revision 5 unit. It has a gray or off-white inner cover. Some older units, EX units and IS units, have a black inner cover. Those are revision 5s or revision 3s. I'm sorry. And if we have to add feedback after the unit's in the field, we have to know if it's a revision 3 or revision 5 to be sure that we can give you the correct card, because they are revision specific. But again, once we've installed the card, we've connected our ribbon cable, and now we can install our cover back. And it's as simple as pressing on it, clicking it in, and now it is called on both ends. We would install both of our screws back, and we would be ready to go with that. All right. We also have the option of, on the units, we can do proximity switches or mechanical switches. I have a set of mechanical switches in. Just typical roller switch type mechanical switches. Okay. This unit only goes in one way. There's 2 screws will be attached. Then what we will do is you would have to remove the screw in the center and replace it with a set of cams that comes with the switch set. Once this is all screwed down, you will have there's a little tool. Basically, if you lose the tool that comes with it, a paper clip will work, but there's little holes drilled into the side of these cams, and we'll be able to turn. These are infinitely adjustable, so they're adjustable. And I can't remember the duration of the cams, but they're quite.
What is the switch rating?
Good question. The mechanical switches on the unit are 24 volt AC or DC rated, no higher than 24 volts. It has to do with exposed terminals, so they're low voltage only. I can't remember off the top of my head what the amperage rating is, but that is pretty critical. That you have to know that you can't run 120 volt lights off of it, which is something we run into quite often. So it is a 24 volt AC or DC rating, but it's the low voltage rating. Guys, I think today, I think we've gone over everything that we would like to kind of start with on this. There's several other things, and we may go into a little more in depth on the D400 in the future. But today, I think that'll be a good start, especially with our late start. And I think Carly has a few things to go over, and I'm going to hand it over to her.
Okay. In our last technical videos, we asked a couple questions just to get some interaction, and so we want to do that again in this video. So the first question is, can a D400 single acting positioner be used on a double acting actuator? Okay, and I'll ask it one more time. Can a D400 single acting positioner be used on a double acting actuator? And we've gotten an answer from David, and he says no. Scott, you want to talk about that a little bit? I know you covered it in the video.
That is correct. As we said, a single acting positioner cannot operate a double acting actuator. We didn't go over the details as to why, but inside the pneumatics of the unit, there are four valves, four relays, poppet valves that are in the pneumatic relay section of the positioner. In a double acting unit, there's all four. In a single acting unit, there is only two. So if someone were to take a D400 single acting, tube it up to a double acting actuator, essentially it's like putting a plug, because the second set of ports aren't even drilled inside the unit.
Is it possible to factory reset the unit from the buttons?
Yes, it is. It is possible. There's a couple different ways you can do. There's a true factory reset, and then there is a quick reset, which is essentially like anybody with an electronic device will tell you, have you powered the unit off? If you press and hold all four buttons through a countdown, I think it's a 5-second countdown. What it will do, all that's doing is powering the unit down and then letting the unit power back up. We can go into the menu structure, and there is a way to factory reset it from scratch like it was new out of the box. There's a couple added steps that's not even shown in the manual, because I think they don't want to advertise it too much, because they don't want somebody to accidentally wipe out their positioner to new specifications. So there's an added step. We can go over that pretty quick. We'll show factory resetting on our test stand over here. So I'm going to get out of testing.
So the first question that I asked was talking about a single acting positioner on a double acting actuator. And we have a question from Joe, and he would like to know, if you can use a double acting D400 for a single acting unit, why would you stock both?
There is just good question. A lot of times people will stock the D400s mainly, but it's double acting mainly because they only have to stock one item. But there is an added cost going from single to double, because technically there's more machining and more parts. So it's not much of an adder, but there is an adder because you have few more components inside a double acting unit.
Okay, and then we have another question from David, and he would like to know, are all the command inputs and settings exactly the same between VAC, ABBs, TZIDC?
Yes, David, our D400 is a TZIDC, so all commands are the same. There's no difference between the two. It is a partnership we have with ABB that we use the D400 product. So as far as any commands, menu structures, and operation, they're identical because it is the same positioner. On our units, when we receive them, we tell you, well, like I said earlier, we told you guys, we vacurize them, we put our logo and our sticker, but we do not hide the fact that it is an ABB. We don't cover their logos or stickers up, or their stickers on the side. So if there's any question there, you could actually, you can ask ABB if you needed to get help with it if we're not available, which we always are. To go back real quick, showing how to do a factory reset. Well, we do have instructions set up for this. Like I said, it's not even shown in the manual because something they don't want you to accidentally do. We'll go over it quickly. We'll get into the configuration level, just like we had spoken about before. Press the up and down arrows. Press the enter button and release it while holding up and down arrows to the countdown. Once you get into the configuration level, you'll press mode and enter, and we'll arrow to 11, P11. We'll release all the buttons, and it will say inactive in the lower part of the screen. What we'll do at that point is we're going to press the enter button and hold it through a countdown. And you'll see now that it says active. Once that says active, what we're going to do is press the mode button, and we're going to arrow to P11.1. And what it will say is factory set. When you release the button, it says FS load. What that means is factory set load. So what it's going to do is load the factory settings. So press and hold the enter button through the countdown. And now it's completed. It has gone through. Once it says complete, it's factory reset. So what we do now is press the mode button or any button to get back into the menu. And we're just going to arrow until we get to exit. Press and hold enter to the countdown. And now we're back to the opening screen. We're back into 1.3.
Okay. Now that you've finished the factory reset, we have another question about a spring return actuator. And David would like to know if you can plumb a spring return actuator as a double acting to prevent air from being adjusted to the spring.
Yes, David. That happens quite often in dirty atmospheres or dusty or corrosive atmospheres. If you have a single acting actuator and you have air ports on both sides, you can plumb in a double acting positioner. But if you do have a single acting positioner, that's what we want to make sure people don't do, is don't use a single acting in any double acting application because it won't work. But for using a double acting positioner on a single acting, you can either one, plug the port you don't need on the positioner, or two, you can actually use that on the other side as an air assist to the spring. Most of what we've gone over with these units, even with our previous webinars, we've all gone over everything we've used is rotary because it's a little simpler and ease of use and kind of easy to show it. These units, the V200 and the V100 and the D400 and our D500 all share the same mounting pad on the back. There's a FO5 bolt pattern. We have several different options when it comes to spindles on the D400 as well as we did on the 200. So we have a bunch of different options to mount to several different things. But if you were to remove one of the D400s and put a V200 in its place or vice versa, you do not need a different mounting kit because you share the same mounting. So if you have one of our positioners mounted, you can mount any one of our positioners. So do you have another? Yeah.
I do. I have one more question.
Carly has another one.
And the question is, what is the maximum air supply pressure for a D400?
Joe hits it with 90. That is correct. The V200 is capable of handling 145 psi, but the D400 is not. So quite often we really stress that specifically on the 400 that you want to put a filter regulator in so that you can make sure that pressure, any plant pressure, anything does not go above 90.
Okay, and then I'll ask one more for this video. Okay. The question is, if you are converting from a standard V200 to a D400, do you have to change your mounting, or can you use the same pre-existing mounting? Okay, David says you can use the same.
Yep, you use the
That
same
is
mounting.
correct.
So it is the same mounting. As long as you're taking off, if you have this, if you take this D400 off of this actuator right here, you could put a V100 or V200 or V100 on in its place without changing the mounting. Jason, you're pretty close. It is the same mounting kit, same mounting kit, different spindles. It is going to be what we call the same spindle. This is a D1 spindle. It would take a V200 D1 spindle as well. The only difference being that the D400 has a female shaft, a hole for the male shaft on the D400 versus the V200, which has a female hole in the positioner with a male shaft on the D400. I mean, on the spindle itself, I'm sorry. Looking back a little bit, it looks like Bob asks, are digital positioners repairable if they get water in them? The short answer is no. That's, again, why we stress filter regulators, specifically coalescing filter regulators, so that you can remove as much air as possible. The D400 has limited repair abilities. Inside the unit is a pretty complex pneumatic system. So oftentimes water will get in there, sit in there, cause some issues. The poppet valves will stick. Very limited times when you have success trying to clean them out, blow them out. It's generally those poppet valves or the I2P itself will stick and give you issues. And at that point, it's really best to replace the unit. Well, guys, I think I'm going to hand it off to Carly. Let her go over a few things. And today, I think we're going to try to kind of wrap it up, let Carly wrap up, and we will look at talking to you guys on the next one.
Yep. Thank you guys for being patient. Sorry again for the mess up in the beginning, but thank you for joining back into this one. Next week, we're going to talk about our D500 positioner. Same time, next Tuesday, 1:30 on our YouTube channel. Be looking out for a link for that. If you have any other questions, even after this video is over about the D400, you can leave them in the comments. You can give us a call. You can email us. Just let us know if there's anything that you would like us to go over in these videos, or if you have any other questions. And so we will see you all next week. Thanks, guys.